An ever-increasing distrust in the news, carnivore attacks, and just a whole bunch of crazy on this week's Uncharted update. Let's go. Well, welcome to 2023. We're almost 2 months in, and let me just list off what's happened so far. We've had factory explosions in Ohio and Florida. We had a 2,500-gallon petroleum leak in Virginia. We've had a complete outage of the FAA, grounding every airplane in the country. We've had 4 UFO attacks. Attacks on the power grid are up 71% over last year, which was already up from the year before, and 12 train derailments this year so far. If you're doing the math, that's 1 every 4.5 days. I'm just gonna give you a second and let that sink in. So what's going on? Well, when people ask me about this, I always have the same response. I say, look, COVID was chapter 1 in a new book we are reading. Things are happening faster and faster, and there has never been a more important time to be prepared. So before we get any further, I want to remind you guys about the 4 Pillars email, which actually launches this week. And as a bonus, we've extended our sign-up offer of getting a 72 for $199. That's over 50% off. I just decided I want you guys to have these things, to be ready. There's never been a better time. I think having these products in your hand is a game changer, so go sign up now. In 2003, which was about when the Iraq War was kicking off, the distrust in American news was at 18%. Today, any guesses? 53%. 53% of you distrust the news out there. Now, while they don't exactly know why, I mean, I feel like it's kind of obvious, but statistically it's hard to find, one of the trends that follows this very closely is what they're calling political polarization. We have team politics going on. You've got the left and the right, and no matter what you hear in the left, the right doesn't agree with it, and vice versa. There's also the effect of social media and big echo chambers happening with people with large audiences continuing to push narratives that they have not researched. So what do we do about this? Well, I had an idea the other day. How about if you call yourself news, you have to report the news, meaning there are fines in place if it's opinion or if it's not actually factual. I wonder if it'd be possible to put a team together to actually regulate this. So why don't we call it Fox Opinion? Or instead of calling it CNN, let's call it Cable Opinion Network. They might not like that one. I think it's a pretty good idea. I'd love to know what you think. But this is kind of why we're doing the 4 Pillars. I want to bring you guys factual information and our perspective, not news a lot of times, on what I think you should do to help navigate this ever-changing world. I'd love to know which news sources you trust. Comment below. Maybe you guys can all share some information and help people find places that are actually factual. I think it's more important now than ever to really lean into what's real, ignore what's not, and make decisions based on that. So carnivore attacks are on the rise. Now, this isn't a 2023 thing. This isn't a COVID thing. This has actually been happening since about 1950. And we're kind of focused on bears, wolves, and large cats, which we have a lot of them right outside the door here in Park City. So why is this happening? Well, there's 2 big reasons. 1, human expansion is real. Population growth, people starting to build homes in places where animals were typically left alone is happening more and more frequently. You see this a lot in places like California, building into hills where coyotes, maybe mountain lions, things like that have lived forever. Now they're bumping into humans. The other piece is climate change. Last month, a woman and her 1-year-old daughter were killed by a polar bear in Alaska. Now, this is the first time in 30 years that this has happened, and the reason being, those floating ice blocks and the places where the polar bears typically live are getting smaller and smaller, forcing them to live on land, putting them in direct contact with humans. Another interesting factor in certain areas has actually been COVID. Places like Glacier National Park in Montana have seen an uptick in human-animal conflict. So now you inject people back into the parks at scale, and these animals that got used to using the walkways and the roads are coming into direct contact with humans, which isn't really a good thing when you're talking grizzly bears and mountain lions. So how do you combat this? Well, if you're moving into a place where animals have typically lived, and maybe it's a new development, keep your head up. Maybe take your headphones off if you're walking out in nature, carry some bear spray, just do some things to be proactive about whatever's going to happen. My suggestion, if I could change the world, stop building in those places and leave the animals alone. If you're in a national park, pay attention to park rangers, signs, respect those rules, they're there for a reason, and enjoy it at a safe distance. That's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to sign up for the 4 Pillars, take advantage of that offer, and we will see you next week.